We all know that image, don't we? Rose, the Rose, arms out wide on the bow of the Titanic yelling, "I'm flying!" It's just burned into our collective memory.
Absolutely. And that moment back in 1997, it catapulted Kate Winslet into this, well, insane level of global fame. The kind few actors ever really touch. It was pure movie stardom.
But here's the fascinating thing, the real core of what we're diving into today. She reaches this incredible peak with Titanic, this massive success.
And then instead of just riding that wave, taking all the huge blockbuster roles that must have been pouring in, she spends the next, 3 decades actively picking parts that were, let's be honest, often pretty non-commercial.
Right. Deliberately choosing these really complex, sometimes thorny, as it's been put, or even unsympathetic women, really committing to independent film.
It's such a paradox, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, think about it. This is an actress who could have easily anchored huge franchises, commanded massive paychecks. But instead, you look at her career, and what do you see? You see her setting a world record for holding her breath underwater for, like, 7 minutes for an Avatar sequel.
Which is just incredible dedication.
Or mastering that incredibly specific Delco accent for an HBO show, Mare of Easttown. And becoming this powerhouse, not just starring, but executive producing on premium TV.
So our mission today really is to unpack all of that, the career, the persona of Kate Winslet. We want to look closely at the intentionality behind pretty much every choice she's made since stepping off that metaphorical iceberg.
Yeah, we've got some really comprehensive sources looking at her life, her early struggles, those career ups and downs, and that fierce independence she seems to have.
And this isn't just going to be, A, then B, then C. It's not a simple timeline.
No, not at all. It's more an exploration of how that deep, deep dedication to the craft, what you might almost call a jobbing actor mindset, even after superstardom, how that, combined with being willing to say no to the easy money, the guaranteed hits, actually leads to this incredible artistic longevity and, of course, massive critical acclaim.
Her career really is kind of a masterclass, isn't it? In how you manage maximum exposure but maintain maximum artistic integrity.
Exactly.
And to really understand where that resilience comes from, that deep-seated commitment to the work itself,
Yeah.
well, we have to go right back to the beginning. Look at the foundations.
Okay, so Reading, Berkshire. What strikes you immediately is that her start was, well, a world away from Hollywood glitz and glamour, right? Her family was steeped in theater, but they were also constantly struggling with money.
That's right. She was born there in 1975,
Yeah.
and acting was, in the blood. Her mom's parents actually ran the Reading Repertory Theater Company.
Wow, okay.
So acting wasn't some sort of impossible dream. It was literally the family business. But, and this is crucial, it was a business that came with huge financial instability.
Yeah, the sources really paint a picture of very limited means. Things like relying on free school meal benefits, sometimes even needing help from the actor's charitable trust just to, get by.
And her father, also an actor, but struggling. He had to take on laboring jobs just to make ends meet.
That kind of background, it must instill a certain kind of work ethic, right? A
Yeah.
sort of
I
pragmatism.
think so. And that financial pressure really hit a peak when Kate was about 10. Her dad had a really serious foot injury from a boating accident.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that made taking those essential physical jobs much, much harder. You can just imagine the stress on the family.
Definitely.
But interestingly, Winslet always said her parents did an amazing job making her feel loved and cared for despite all that financial strain. So there was this supportive foundation, which seems really key to her later, stability and drive.
So you've got the acting genes, you've got that working class resilience. But even as she started pursuing acting herself, she faced some pretty intense personal stuff, particularly around her appearance. She went to Red Roof's theater school when she was 11. But she's described herself as being an overweight kid, and apparently she was bullied quite badly for it.
Yeah, the details are pretty harsh. Kids calling her blubber. I mean, that's incredibly painful, especially when you're starting out in a career so focused on how you look, on public image.
And it wasn't just schoolyard stuff, was it? It affected her roles early on.
No, it did. When she was involved with the Star Maker Theater Company, and she did over 20 productions with them, which shows her commitment. Even then, she was apparently often passed over for the main roles because of her weight.
So she was already being typecast, in a way, playing the character parts like Miss Hannigan in Annie or Mother Wolf in The Jungle Book.
Exactly. It shows that early dedication, definitely, but also that constant sort of rejection based on appearance.
But the key thing seems to be she didn't let it stop her.
No, she didn't. And interestingly, What apparently did motivate her to lose weight later wasn't the bullying, but a sort of throwaway comment from a director. This is in 1992 on the set of a TV film called Anglo-Saxon Attitudes.
Right, what happened there? It sounds quite pivotal.
Well, she was about 13 stone 3 pounds then, playing the daughter of a character who was meant to be obese. And she overheard the director, Diarmuid Lawrence, just making a comment about the physical similarity between her and the actress playing her mother.
Just an observation about casting, really.
Pretty much. It wasn't meant maliciously, apparently, just a blunt professional observation.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, that comment was the catalyst. That's what made her decide to seriously focus on losing weight.
That's fascinating. It suggests her motivation was more internal, tied to her professional goals, rather than just bowing to external pressure.
I think that's right. And despite those early hurdles, her screen debut actually came really quickly. 1991, just 2 weeks after her GCSE exams, she's in a BBC sci-fi series called Dark Season.
Which was written by Russell T Davies, funnily enough.
Exactly. A quick start professionally, but then again, reality bites. Money was still tight. She couldn't afford the fees to stay at Red Roofs, so she had to leave when she was 16.
And ended up working in a deli for a bit.
Yeah, just briefly, to support herself. It really hammers home that this huge international star was forged in this very working class, get the next job, pay the bills kind of environment, constantly fighting for roles, for that next paycheck.
That foundation, the grit, the dedication, the emotional prep, it leads us perfectly into what we're calling the defining era. This period, say, 1994 to 2003, intense roles, that explosive fame, and then this incredibly deliberate turn away from the obvious path.
Yeah, her first really major film role was, talk about jumping into the deep end psychologically, Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures in 1994. She beat 175 other actresses for the part of Juliet Holm, the teenage murderer.
And her preparation for that role really set the template for her entire career, didn't it? She wasn't just learning lines, she became a researcher.
Totally. She dove deep into the real story, reading the actual trial transcripts from the murder case, the letters, the diaries of the real people involved. Full immersion.
But that level of immersion, it took a massive toll, right?
Oh, definitely. The sources say she found it incredibly hard to shake off the character, the events. She was apparently quite traumatized by filming in the actual locations where the murder happened, often just crying when she got home from the set. It was a real baptism by fire into that kind of intense method-style acting.
The psychological cost sounds immense. And yet, almost straight away, she pivots again, showing completely different skills in Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility in '95.
The contrast couldn't be starker, could it? Going from this traumatized, intense teenager in Heavenly Creatures to the, impulsive but restrained Marianne Dashwood.
Then Ang Lee apparently had her doing Tai Chi and reading Gothic novels.
Yeah, to get that specific quality of grace and restraint he wanted for the period. And she absolutely nailed it. Won her first BAFTA for Best Supporting Actress. It really established her early on as this incredibly versatile actress who could handle gritty, modern stuff and demanding period drama.
And then, 1997, the big one, Titanic.
The game changer. And her determination to get that role. Rose DeWitt Bukater. It's legendary.
She really went after it, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. She pursued James Cameron relentlessly, apparently sending him notes, calling him.
Yeah.
There's that famous quote where she basically pleaded, "You don't understand. I am Rose. I don't know why you're even seeing anyone else." That kind of conviction, it's almost scary.
But getting the role meant signing up for what sounds like an absolutely brutal shoot.
Brutal is the word. The sources are full of the details. She got influenza, suffered from hypothermia in those water tanks, got covered in bruises.
Didn't she nearly drown at one point?
Yeah, apparently during one of the underwater scenes, she was just constantly exhausted, running on maybe 4 hours sleep a night sometimes. The physical and mental toll was just extreme.
But the result, well, it changed everything.
It altered the landscape. Titanic became the highest-grossing film ever at that point, made over $2 billion. And suddenly, Kate Winslet, aged just 22, gets a Best Actress Oscar nomination. She wasn't just a star. She was, overnight, this global phenomenon, a commodity.
And this is the crucial moment, isn't it? The pivot point. The entire world expects her to cash in, take the next massive blockbuster, the franchise lead.
Right, the logical next step.
And she does the exact opposite, what we're calling the deliberate pivot. She actively turned down pretty much every big-budget mainstream role she was offered.
It was a huge gamble, commercially speaking. Instead, she chose these smaller independent films, things like Hideous Kinky or Jane Campion's really quite challenging film, Holy Smoke.
Why? What was her thinking there?
Well, she explained it later, and it was purely about the craft. She said she felt she still had a lot to learn, that she just wasn't ready, wasn't prepared to be that kind of capital S star. She wanted to become a better actress first.
But surely that was a massive risk. Financially, strategically, how did the industry react?
I think there was definitely curiosity, maybe some confusion, like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
But she really stuck to her guns.
Yeah.
And she credits that period now for her career's longevity. By saying no to those obvious safe choices, she avoided getting stuck.
Avoided being just the English rose forever.
Exactly, or just locked into period dramas. Holy smoke,
Yeah.
is such a perfect example of that commitment.
Tell us about that one.
Well, she plays this quite unlikable, manipulative young Australian woman who gets involved with a cult. It required her to master a whole new accent, perform these really explicit, daring scenes.
Yeah.
Stuff that you'd think a young actress fresh off the biggest movie in the world would probably shy away from.
Choosing complexity, risk over safety, and, easy prestige.
Completely. And what's also fascinating is that right in the middle of all this intense, dramatic, almost kind of punishing work, she wins a Grammy Award.
Wait, a Grammy amidst all this heavy drama?
Yeah. In 1999, for Best Spoken Word Album for Children, she narrated a story called The Face in the Lake.
That's brilliant. It completely disrupts that narrative of just the serious actress, doesn't it? Shows her range of interests was maybe wider than people assume.
A total curveball.
Yeah.
But she did quickly return to the more expected, respected dramas through to about 2003. You've got Quills in 2000 playing a laundress opposite Geoffrey Rush's Marquis de Sade.
And Iris in 2001 playing the young Iris Murdoch.
Mm-hmm.
Got her third Oscar nomination for that, supporting Judi Dench.
Right. And she filmed Iris while she was pregnant, which again shows that relentless focus. It was always about the intellectually and emotionally demanding work, whatever was going on in her personal life.
Okay, so she successfully navigated that post-Titanic minefield, choosing art over stardom. That brings us nicely into Section 3, defining her modern career, escaping the typecasting, and then this incredible run of awards success between, say, 2004 and 2011.
Yeah, the big turning point here, consciously, was her decision around 2004 that she absolutely had to get out of the period drama box. She was actively looking for contemporary roles.
And she found the perfect vehicle in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, right? That Michel Gondry, Charlie Kaufman masterpiece.
Absolutely perfect. Playing Clementine Kruczynski, this impulsive, vibrant, blue-haired woman who decides to erase her ex-boyfriend from her memory. It was such a massive shift.
It really let her show a different side, didn't it? That quirky, modern energy, but in a film that was also incredibly acclaimed critically.
Exactly. She's called it one of her favorite roles and definitely a crucial turning point because it finally proved to directors and maybe to herself that she could do so much more than just corsets and bonnets.
The critics loved it too, didn't they? That sense of her breaking free.
They really did. They praised her for ditching that corseted English rose persona. And even then, her dedication was noted. Apparently, she took up kickboxing to stay agile and ready for the improvisation that Gondry encouraged on set.
And boom, another Oscar nomination, BAFTA nomination. She was back in the awards conversation, but on her own terms now.
Which set the stage for her absolute peak awards moment, which has to be 2008. Just an incredible year. She starred in two huge, very challenging dramas, released almost back-to-back, Revolutionary Road and The Reader.
Revolutionary Road was the big reunion with Leo DiCaprio, of course, directed by Sam Mendes, who she was married to at the time, playing April Wheeler, that 1950s housewife whose dreams are just crushed by suburbia.
The emotional territory there was just devastating, required incredible depth.
And typically she approached it with intense preparation, researching the whole psychology of that era, reading Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique.
Yeah, really trying to get inside the heads of those unhappy housewives, understand that specific kind of despair. It's like she's blending sociology with her acting prep.
And as if that wasn't demanding enough, at the same time, she takes on the reader.
Right, stepping in after Nicole Kidman had to drop out, playing Hannah Schmitz, a former Nazi concentration camp guard who is also illiterate. I mean, talk about a morally complex, challenging role.
That sounds like walking an ethical tightrope for any actor. How does she even begin to research something like that?
Well, again, deep dive. Extensive research on the Holocaust, specifically looking at the behavior of SS guards. And she also spent time with literacy groups to understand the profound shame and secrecy that comes with illiteracy.
Did she talk about the struggle of playing someone like that?
She did. She admitted it was incredibly difficult psychologically, finding that balance, playing the part honestly, as she put it, but without somehow humanizing or excusing the character's horrific actions. It was about portraying a flawed, real person without absolving her history.
And the award season that followed was just historic.
Absolutely legendary. That one year, 2008 into 2009, she wins 2 Golden Globes on the same night. Best Actress for Revolutionary Road, Best Supporting Actress for The Reader. Only 2 other actresses had ever done that.
And then finally, the Oscar.
Finally, Academy Award for Best Actress for The Reader. She was 33 years old, and at that point, she became the youngest person ever to have racked up 6 Oscar nominations. Professionally, she was absolutely at the summit.
But what's so interesting is what she did next. After all that intensity, the awards, the media frenzy, she didn't just launch into another film, she vanished.
Exactly. The sources mentioned she took a 2-year break. Just complete media exhaustion, the intensity of the work, the constant glare of the spotlight. It had clearly taken its toll.
A necessary reset, maybe?
Seems like it.
Yeah.
A pause before her next really strategic move, which was to conquer premium television.
Right. She comes back in 2011 with the HBO miniseries Mildred Pierce, a massive undertaking.
Monumental is the word. Playing Mildred, this working-class single mother battling through the Great Depression. It was demanding in a totally different way from film. Apparently, she was in every single scene of the entire, 280-page script.
Wow, the stamina required for that.
Incredible. Something few film actors really have to sustain.
And she brought a very personal connection to it, too, didn't she? Relating it to her own life.
She did. She talked about drawing parallels between Mildred's struggles after her divorce and her own recent separation from Sam Mendes. And again, the dedication to detail. She learned how to bake period-accurate pies, how to properly prepare chickens for the role. Just total commitment to authenticity, even in the small things.
And surprise, surprise, the awards rolled in again. Emmy, Golden Globes, SAG Award for Mildred Pierce. It really cemented her status, didn't it? Not just a film star, but an absolute master of demanding long-form TV drama.
Yeah, she did dip back into film briefly around then, with some high-profile ensembles that showed her range again, like playing that CDC doctor in Contagion, apparently modeling the role on a real-life disease detective.
And she chat, yeah.
And then Roman Polanski's Carnage, which was basically filmed like a play, all set in one apartment.
A real actor's piece.
Totally. But that big move into prestige TV with Mildred Pierce felt like it was signaling a really significant, sustained shift in direction.
Which brings us to Section 4. Her more recent work, which seems defined by even more intense physicality, that specialized dedication, and her really stepping up as a powerhouse producer, especially on TV.
Absolutely. After 2011, the roles she picks often seem to hinge on these incredibly specific, often very difficult physical or linguistic challenges, like Steve Jobs in 2015. She won another BAFTA for playing Joanna Hoffman, the Apple marketing exec.
And the accent for that role was famously tricky, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Hoffman has this unique Armenian-Polish hybrid accent filtered through living internationally. Winslet called it the most difficult accent she'd ever tackled in her career.
And she worked really closely with Michael Fassbender on that, right? Kind of mirroring their characters' relationship?
Exactly. Just proving, again, she'll put in the work, sacrifice comfort for total authenticity.
And then just 2 years later, she actively goes looking for a role that was purely about physical endurance. The Mountain Between Us.
Yeah. She apparently wanted that physical challenge, filming up in the Canadian mountains, 10,000 feet up, doing her own stunts. She called it the most physically demanding thing she'd ever done professionally. It's like she's constantly testing herself, pushing her body, her technique.
But the really major shift, I think, has been her move into producing, particularly with Mare of Easttown for HBO in 2021. That felt like a career-defining performance, maybe.
It was huge, critically. Playing Detective Mare Sheehan, this woman wrestling with immense grief after her son's suicide. She didn't just act it, she executive produced it.
And she dove deep into the character's trauma, didn't she? Consulting grief counselors, building this whole backstory.
But also, the accent. That Delco accent, Philadelphia English, is notoriously hard to get right without sounding like a caricature. The fact that she nailed it and was an executive producer really highlights her level of control now. As producer, she could shape the character, the whole narrative, insist on that authenticity for things like the accent, the emotional truth.
And again, total award sweep, Emmy, Golden Globe, SAG. It felt like she'd moved from just mastering the craft to actually controlling the whole product.
Which she then took even further with I Am Ruth in 2022.
Tell us about that one. It involved her daughter, right?
Yeah, this was fascinating. A feature-length, largely improvised episode for a Channel 4 anthology series. She co-authored it, produced it, and starred in it opposite her own daughter, Mia Threepleton.
And the subject matter was very current, very relevant.
Very. The damaging effects of social media on teenage mental health. And this is where her public persona and her work really started to merge. When she won 2 BAFTAs for Best Actress and Best Single Drama as a producer, she used her acceptance speech to call on lawmakers to actually criminalize harmful online content.
Using her platform, her producer power, to really set an agenda, that's a big shift.
It's a powerful evolution. And then, sandwiched in there, she goes back to work with James Cameron on the Avatar sequels and accepts maybe the most extreme physical challenge of her career yet.
Oh, the breath holding.
The 7-minute breath hold for Avatar. The Way of Water in 2022. It involved motion capture, but also required intensive freediving training. And she held her breath underwater for 7 minutes and 14 seconds, breaking Tom Cruise's on-set record just to film one scene.
I mean, 7 minutes. How do you even train your body for that? It speaks to her dedication, obviously, but it almost sounds beyond what's necessary. It's an insane record for an actor.
It just shows her commitment is absolute, I think. She's not afraid of the physical sacrifice if she believes in the project of the director. And of course, Avatar 2 was another massive global hit, her second film after Titanic, to cross that $2 billion mark.
Proving she can still do the massive blockbusters, but seemingly only when they offer some kind of extreme artistic or physical challenge she wants to conquer.
Exactly. And her more recent work continues that trend of her taking control as executive producer on complex, high-concept projects. She EP'd and starred in Lee, the biopic about war photographer Lee Miller.
And just recently, the regime playing that autocratic chancellor.
Right, a political satire. And even for that, playing this megalomaniac dictator, she consulted a neuroscientist and a psychotherapist to build the character's psychological backstory. That level of research, it just never stops, does it? Whatever the genre.
And the next big step is already lined up. Directing.
Yeah, she's set to make her feature directorial debut with a film called Goodbye, June. And get this, it's written by her son, Joe Anders. She'll also star and produce.
Wow. So the control moves fully behind the camera now, involving her family, shaping her own creative agenda.
Yeah.
It really feels like the culmination of this 30-year journey, moving from being the subject of the camera to the power directing it. So let's wrap up in our final section by looking at the Kate Winslet persona outside the roles. Her public image, her activism, how she manages this incredibly demanding career, alongside a family life she seems to guard quite fiercely.
Well, journalists consistently describe her as, one of the best actresses of her generation. There's often talk of this authoritative, almost ambassadorial quality she has. She comes across as deeply serious about the work.
And her colleagues seem to back that up. Leonardo DiCaprio famously called her the most prepared and well-researched actor on set.
Mm-hmm. And she herself talks about wanting to be the character, not just act the part. That tendency to gravitate towards these complex, often angst-ridden or troubled women means she finds it genuinely hard to switch off afterwards. It's clearly all-consuming work for her.
But that intensity about her craft is often contrasted with her very public, very strong stance on body image, isn't it? She uses her fame quite deliberately there.
Oh, absolutely. She's been incredibly outspoken for years about rejecting Hollywood's narrow beauty standards, refusing to let the industry dictate her weight or appearance.
And she's backed it up legally, too. We found details of 2 major libel cases she won. One against GQ magazine back in 2003.
For digitally altering photos of her, making her look thinner and taller without asking her first.
Right. And another against Grazia magazine in 2007 for falsely claiming she was seeing a dietitian.
And the Grazia case is interesting because she didn't just win. She donated the damages she received to an eating disorder charity. So she's using that legal victory to make a point and support others.
Her stance on natural aging is also really prominent. She was part of that British anti-cosmetic surgery league with Emma Thompson and Rachel Weisz.
Yeah, encouraging women to embrace aging naturally. And she apparently regularly tells magazines and brands not to Photoshop her wrinkles in pictures. She's actively using her clout, her image, to try and shift industry norms.
Beyond controlling her own image, her charity work also seems very intentional, often quite personal.
Definitely. Like the Golden Hat Foundation she co-founded in 2010. That was inspired by watching a documentary about autism in Iceland. And it's dedicated to raising autism awareness. She even wrote a book about it.
And she's lent her voice to other causes, too. A PETA video against foie gras production.
And quite touchingly, she and Leo DiCaprio teamed up again, not just for climate change awareness, but they privately helped pay the nursing home fees for Milvina Dean, who was the last living survivor of the actual Titanic.
Wow, that connection back to the film decades later. It's quite something.
It shows a real loyalty, doesn't it?
Mm.
And finally, there's her family life, which she clearly prioritizes intensely, despite all the public scrutiny. She's been married 3 times, currently married to Edward Abel Smith since 2012. He's Richard Branson's nephew.
And it's maybe not a conventional Hollywood setup, but it seems anchored by that same sense of dedication she brings to her work. We read that her husband actually legally added Winslet as one of his middle names.
Yeah, apparently just because the kids have it on their passports, and he wanted them all to feel unified as a family unit, which says a lot.
She's always insisted that, despite the different marriages, different fathers for her children, it doesn't make them less of a family. She actively schedules her filming around school holidays.
And her husband became a stay-at-home dad after they got married, which presumably allows her that space to work but also be present. She talks about enjoying the normal stuff, packing lunches, doing the school run.
It's like the woman who conquered Hollywood in the awards circuit is just as committed to the everyday domestic routine. That dedication to finding a balance might be the most effective part of her sort of anti-stardom shield, applying the same discipline to her personal life as she does to her acting prep.
So we're trying to sum up her identity. She's this critically revered English actress defined by this absolute commitment to deeply complex, often really difficult characters, and equally defined by these principal stands she takes outside of acting, fighting body shaming, advocating for online safety as a producer.
And she's achieved that rare ego -1 status. She's got the Oscar, multiple Emmys, the Grammys, just needs the Tony Award. Her whole career path just screams artistic challenge over easy money. It proves that maybe real longevity isn't always found in the biggest blockbusters, but in depth, integrity, and making very deliberate choices.
Absolutely. She leveraged the world's biggest film, used that platform, but then deliberately steered herself towards independent film and prestige TV to keep learning, keep evolving. So given her success now as an executive producer, co-writing I Am Ruth, her son writing her upcoming directorial debut, the big question, the provocative thought we want to leave you with is this.
Is the intensely prepared actress now making the final transition, becoming that powerful, agenda-setting voice behind the camera?
What path do you take creatively once you've pretty much done it all as a performer? Conquered every challenge, embodied almost every kind of complex woman imaginable? We'll have to wait and see what director Winslet does next, how she shapes that next chapter.
A fascinating career to track. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.